For those of you who don't know who Edgar Cayce is, he was a psychic. He's the only psychic that has never made a wrong prediction. One is misinterpreted. Well, I'll explain that in a minute. He was a psychic of the 1800s, earlier to mid-1900s. He predicted the stock market crash of 1929, the rise in 1931. He predicted when Hitler would reign, all the details of the war, the alliances, when they would enter. He predicted the 44th president would be black. Obama was black. He predicted JFK and FDR's death. He predicted when the Dead Sea Scrolls would be found, that blood would be a diagnostic tool, that we'd have in the 21st century, we'd have wireless cell phones, explain the technology. By the end of it, we'd have wireless TVs, like tons of predictions. All right. And he also predicted that the rise of Atlantis would happen in 1968. That's when the Bimini Road in the Atlantic Ocean was found. Now, he also predicted the pole shift. And in this prediction, he explained it, that it would be a huge shift, and that where it's cold would become tropical. Now, I found a lot more details I'll explain tomorrow. It's a 90-degree shift. So there was no ice age. That's why there was an ice age that didn't even hit South America. It was the edge. So where you can see Atlantis, this also shifted into Antarctica. That's why there's pyramids there. There's actually no other explanation for this. Now, we also have pyramids under Cuba. There's no other pyramids in Cuba, because that was connected to Atlantis. Egypt, Bimini, and Yucatan were the three ancient repositories that were going to resurface in this cycle right before it happens. Bimini, I've already talked about. Egypt is the underwater ruins of Theonis. Yucatan was the ancient Mayan relics and skeletons found in this whole inner earth system of caves under the water. So check, check, and check. And so the misinterpreted prediction, people say, oh, well, he said that LA and New York will be in the ocean in 1998. That is absolutely not what he said. He said the cycle of the pole shift begins 58 to 98, and then it's rain, and even specifies in 2000, still the first cycle of the pole shift. So 98 was when NASA first detected the pole shift that could be of concern. And in 58 was when NASA was started, because there was a big concern. Edgar Cayce specifically mentions that it's sunspots that cause these cycles. I just said the sun blew up. This happened greatly from 97 to 98. And it caused a radio blackout, which Edgar Cayce also mentions in the pole shifts. And notice the sun exploding on this stamp with the creation of atom hands conjoined. Kind of interesting that the book that the CIA sanitized by Shan Thomas about this pole shift is called The Adam and Eve Story. There's something called the San Andreas Fault Line. It goes right down the center of California. It's responsible for its high-powered earthquakes, and recent discoveries show that it's about to crack. And when it does, California could slip into this. This is exactly what Edgar Cayce says is going to happen when the pole shift happens. High-powered earthquake that's going to make California slip into the sea. The other city that he mentions that's going to slip in the sea is New York City. Nostradamus' prediction, end times prediction, says the cataclysm will happen in the Great New City. So this is definitely New York City. And Edgar Cayce says that a star is going to appear in the sky. This star is also mentioned in Revelations, by the Mayans, by the Hopi, by pretty much any end time prophecy. He also mentions the radio blackout, that the sun is going to be blacked out. This is what happened in 1958 when he said this cycle begins, which we hadn't even seen that when he was alive. And the quote that made it all click was that he said, those who are frigid and semi-frigid will be moved into where it's tropical. Even though I've told you guys that Shan Thomas said that India will be in the North Pole, and everything that Shan Thomas says aligns perfectly with Cayce, only he goes into greater detail. Plus, he had his book sanitized by the CIA, so we know he's right. So he says the Bay of Bengal will be in the North Pole, and Peru, west of Peru, like the Pacific Ocean, will be in the South Pole. But remember, it's a reversal. So last time we were in the North Pole, Atlantis was where we are. Atlantis moved to Antarctica. So I went back to him for, confirmation. He absolutely confirms this. He says it's not a matter, ice ages are not a matter of retracting and ice growing, that it's a matter of different polar regions in the Earth at different times. Goes into detail about the whole thing. So, good news is there is no global ice age, but more good news, we won't be surviving anyways. There's 1,000-mile-per-hour winds that is just going to destroy everything. And more good news, the continent of Africa has cracked in half. making way for the world's sixth ocean. According to Chan Thomas, this little section with Kenya is the one that's going to survive. I'll explain the winds first. What's going to happen is the Earth is actually going to stop rotating in its tracks before it reverses. It rotates at 1,000 miles per hour. So when this happens, all the water at that speed is going to just drown everything out. It's going to start with a very loud, violent earthquake that's going to just be going for hours. It's coming from the center of our Earth. I've already told some of you, the center of the Earth has stopped orbiting its track and started to reverse, and it's going into speed, going faster and faster, much greater than the rest of the Earth. This definitely coincides. They just found a portal to the center of the Earth, to the sun. Our ancients tell us that the inside of the Earth is sun. They tell us that it's the same heat, and it's just a cosmic event. And you can find proof. I'm going to have to do proof of the reversal in another episode, but this is proof of pole shift. There is fresh spring buttercups, grass, seeds in these woolly mammoths' bellies. So the Sumerian tablets tell us of a planet Nibiru that cyclically crosses into our solar system and drags all kinds of stuff with it and wreaks havoc on our Earth. And actually on the Elish, the ones that are recently found, the 7 tablets of creation, it really reveals the truth, reveals that they're actually reptilian. That's how the government knows, by the way. And it reveals that the reason for the global flood is Nibiru passing. Now, there's a new planet crossing into our solar system, dragging all kinds of stars with it. One of them is closest to our sun than any other star, and it's coming closer. I'll be covering that tomorrow. So another video showed up in my recently watched, same exact situation. I was watching something on my phone, went to transfer it to the TV, and somehow there's something in front of it. The James Webb Telescope just discovered Proxima b. This is 110% Nibiru. And they spent $10 billion on this James Webb Telescope. Why do you think that is? Just to track Proxima b, Nibiru. They know it. Now, they believe it supports life. Right now, they're trying to figure out if the lights coming from Nibiru are artificial. Radio signals have been picked up from Nibiru, and it's beaming with radiation. Now, remember, the Anunnaki are originally from Nibiru, so there's other Anunnaki on the planet right now, for sure. And Nibiru, as depicted in the Sumerian tablets, dragging all kinds of things with it, causing devastation, is dragging Alpha Centauri, which we can now see without a telescope. Great news, huh? It's blue too, blue star Kachina. And the closest star to Earth is Alpha Centauri. The blue star Kachina, the Hopi prophecy, is coming true. Now also, Stitchin tells us not only is there life on the planet, Anunnaki, but it has a red glow. So this red dwarf star and the other star, they emit red light. And one half of the planet is always in the dark. And the video I was watching actually said if there's life on the planet, to get light on the other side, they'd have to have a sophisticated reflective system, otherwise LED lights. So if there's already red light, they'd be using red light anyways. It really fits it all to the T. And after spotting hints of disruption from this planet in 2013, astronomers have been searching for tugging on this planet. That means that this is Planet X. They just repackaged it because they don't want people to freak out about Nibiru. This is the planet I showed you the video, Planet X, that they were searching for the signs of tugging.
But discrepancies in its orbit meant that something was tugging at it. Sure enough, that something turned out to be Neptune. Ever since, scientists have wondered if there might be yet another planet in our solar system, sometimes called Planet X. Now, astronomers have strong evidence for one. A planet roughly the size of Neptune, with a mass 10 times the Earth's, and a thick atmosphere of hydrogen and helium. Just as Neptune was predicted based on its influence on Uranus, the evidence for Planet X is indirect. Astronomers observe 6 small solar system objects and notice they come closest to the Sun in a unique configuration. There's only a 1 in 15,000 chance that this orbital clustering is a coincidence. It is much more likely that Planet X has shepherded the 6 objects into their orbits. This explodes our conception of the solar system, because Planet X would loop around the Sun unimaginably far away in a strange elliptical orbit, so far away that it takes 15,000 years to make the trip. By comparison, Neptune's orbital period is 165 years.
So I also noticed 2013. I can guarantee you 2012 is when it started crossing into our solar system. I knew the Mayan prophecy date, 2012, was too significant with the 12 to be wrong, just like Edgar Cayce gave us the beginning of the cycle of the pole shift. They let us know when it was crossing into our solar system, starting the cycle. Basically, through all these different cultures and prophecies, they're giving us hints of what's going on. So once I found out this planet is for sure Nibiru, and how many light years away, it just doesn't make sense that it could bring anything dragging into our Earth. And then, realizing the Sumerian tablets just says it's dragging stuff with it, and then thinking back to Hopi, and, it's called chasing planet. And there's a lot of misinterpretations with Hopi. But I did go back to Hopi, and they did say that, in one of the older interpretations, that a great inhabitable house fell to Earth. Now, interesting, Revelations calls this cataclysm, the rock that fell to Earth, wormwood. Remember, 12,000 years ago, the meteor they found that supported life, there was evidence of fossilized microorganisms. Now, Revelation says, a great star, blazing like a torch, fell from the sky, and Nostradamus depicts it almost the same exact way. Up in the sky, a great fire, dragging a trail of sparks. So this is clearly cataclysm. And anyone thinking, oh, well, Nostradamus could have got the idea from the Bible. What about the Bible having Nostradamus' end times book revealed inside of it? Nostradamus wrote a book, Vaticina Nostradamus. And this is a book on the end times and has illustrations. 7 of them depicts when the event's going to happen. It's been in the Vatican Library, and it just resurfaced in the 90s. Now, Revelation says, and I saw in the right hand of him who sits on the throne, the Pope, a book, and inside and on the back had 7 seals. What kind of book has seals on the inside? Seals of fate. So, being as though the Bible and the Sumerian tablets are the same author, I'm going to go with yes, there is going to be a cataclysm. It's just not something being dragged by Nibiru. It's just, cosmic event, just another recipe and the ingredient of this apocalypse, really. And NASA just announced that there is a meteor, or asteroid, larger than they've ever recorded, and it's hurling through space right at us. They estimate 2029, it has a 1 in 37 chance of hitting us, and that's another record breaker. And aside from the planet killer, they're calling this Apophis. Apophis is the Egyptian god or demon of destruction and chaos. And of course it takes serpent form. Apophis is cyclical, which means it's coming back again with a dangerous threat in 2035. And they have a space explorer now called OSIRIS-REx, which they are changing to OSIRIS-APEX, which will mean Osiris Apophis Explorer. And they're sending it out to Apophis to get a sample. So if it comes back and there's fossilized microorganisms, we're going to know. When you get deep enough into the ground, the atoms are reversed north to south. Unfortunately, there's no accurate way to date rock. They're estimating 27,000 years in, but we've seen enough of how little they know about the center of our Earth lately. I'm going to show you more of that soon, too. It's 12,000 years for sure. And I'll give you an example of just how slow they want you to think this happens. A similar article about the bottom of the ocean floor, they're estimating the reverse of the atoms is less than 1 million years old. Anybody who's new, Charles Hapgood, worked as a predecessor to the CIA, Office of Strategic Services, was writing a book on the pole shift. And, he was being really cautious, and then he said, I'm just going to tell you how quick it really happens. Got hit by a car, book was never released. There's not only evidence of this quick change in the layer of the Earth, but also in the ocean floor, all the way from Brazil through the Caribbean, and these little shell creatures that coil clockwise. Now, below the Ice Age layer, immediately, counterclockwise. Continental shelves near the coast have erosional features, drainage patterns. The canyons, they widen and flare towards the ocean. There's endless evidence. Now, these gullies have to happen when there's water cutting over dry land. You can see Norfolk Canyon, Washington, how it cut. The center of the Earth is sun. Now, not only has our ancients told us about this, many occultists, just messengers, these entities keep telling us about the center of the Earth. Agartha, Shambhala, call it what you want. What were we told about this pole shift reversal? That there's going to be a powerful shock wave that's going to surge through the Earth, out the Earth's equator. When a star novas, in the center of the star, creates a powerful shock wave, surges through the star and blows it up. the center of the Earth and stars have the same center modulation point. What I'm saying is the center of our Earth is going to nova also during this event. They say that the center of a star and the center of our Earth both have a solid core, which I don't really take anything serious that they say. Complete contradictions constantly. Like, the sun is a star. Like, you can Google, it's Proxima. It has 3 suns. Those are the 3 stars. But they'll tell you that the sun doesn't have a solid core. The stars do, which how would they know anyways? And, tell you what star behavior is and sun behavior. It's a SME if it's a star, and a CME if it's a sun, and a star isn't supposed to act like a sun, yet it's the same thing. So just another example of how little they know. But just because there is enough similarities between the two to make them think this, I'm going to use it. But to be clear, the center of the Earth might have a solid core, but it is not an iron core. There's no way. The sun is spinning independently now, backwards, disconnected from the rest of the Earth. Like, there has to be, that can't be iron. There has to be a force to it. And speaking of that, that is what's going to cause the reversal. Think about it. The center of our Earth is now spinning the opposite direction, faster and faster and faster. When it novas, that's what's going to be enough force with our Earth spinning the other way to stop it in its tracks, hold it still, and then it's going to follow the sun in its tracks. And just to be clear, especially if you're new, this is not something you're going to Google. This is my opinion. You can't Google this stuff. They know that the sun novas. You won't be able to Google that. There's proof of this all over the planets that they've got testing. This meteor glass, every planet that they've tested, on the meteors too, they won't even tell you what meteor glass is. They'll tell you it's bits of leftover rock from debris billions of years ago. But it's not. It's from the sun novaing. That's why 12,000 years ago, we have all these reports of meteor glass from 12,000 years ago. Solar storm that melted the ice age in one day. Same thing. It's the sun novaing. And you can also see the proof of this in the sand. Betelgeuse's SME just ejected 400 billion times more mass than an average CME, which is pretty insane. Now, Betelgeuse is thought to be outside of our danger zone, but these supernovas can destroy Earth. They're like bioweapons, just completely destroy our biosphere, cover in radiation. Just one is bright enough to light up an entire galaxy, conceal billions of stars. Every planet in our solar system is acting erratic, unpredictable, showing signs of what's going on. From Neptune, just had a storm reversal, which means they just had a reversal, to Uranus losing 20% of its atmosphere. I think I'm just going to have to caption in because it's a lot. It's time-wise. Not only did Chan Thomas, Edgar Cayce, and Charles Hapgood know about this 90-degree shift, quick shift, so did Einstein. He said that when this happens, Greenland and the portion of Antarctica south to Australia will be in the equator. Guess where Cuba is? 20 degrees north of the equator. These Edgar Cayce maps, they're not Edgar Cayce maps. I think Gordon Michael just used Edgar Cayce's name for publicity. He said he made them based on Edgar Cayce's predictions and his own, but I'm noticing some huge errors. Like, he didn't even make that many prophecies about America, like specifically said New York and California in the ocean. And then again, in his prediction about 2100, like he said New York is completely gone. Alabama is partially covered in water. You look on the map, Alabama's completely there. New York is more than halfway there. So this is a big error. And then Atlantis, if he was really getting prophecies, he would have put it in the more correct location and the more correct size. This should be in the shape of Antarctica. Or it should be the little piece that dropped off behind. So I'm going to retract Edgar Cayce maps as safety and Morgan news. So the whole 2 volcanoes erupting, Mount Pelée and Mount Etna, and then having 30 days. I got this from many videos and articles, but I cannot find it in his prophecies. Like, if I'm missing somebody, if anybody can help me out, what I'm seeing is Mount Vivius, Mount Etna, and Mount Pelée will be signaling changes, not even erupting. I mean, at some point they'll erupt. And then where's everybody getting this 90 days from? So yeah, if any Edgar Cayce fans know something I don't know, please let me know. But I'm going to have to retract the 90-day warning and the 2 volcanoes. So we really don't have much warning of this thing. But volcanoes will be erupting. so we'll have a good idea it's coming. He also mentioned Canada, southeast Canada, which must be the Appalachian Mountains, as a good safe spot. So if you can build something, build it there. But he didn't mention a whole lot of specifics on safe spots in America, unfortunately, and that's pretty much where we're going to have to build. However, there are, Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, other territory we do own that are near the equator, or in the equator, that aren't going to move too far out. Just Google, wherever you're going to build it, evidence of ice age, and don't build it in a region with ice age. If you're going to build a bunker, don't have an electronic door, or make sure there's some kind of release that doesn't involve electricity. Use a lot of steel, and just be aware that it needs to be sealed completely. There's going to be water rushing over for about a week straight. Quick add, I realized I left out a minor detail. So if we're here in America during World War III, we're not going to be here for the pole shift anyways. Hopi prophecy says World War III, which also Revelations mentions as one of the calamities leading up to this, that we're all toast and bunkers aren't going to save us, I assume obviously because it's unexpected. Now this should be taken seriously. Not only does Hopi prophecy align with all the others, but with Edgar Cayce too. They have similarities. They both said, Hopi says we're going into the fifth world. Edgar Cayce says fifth root race. They both tell us about how all colors of people were set on different parts of the world at the same time. Can't really mention it, a little racist. Edgar Cayce said 58 is when this cycle starts. Hopi got word from Entity in 1958 that it had started. By 1959, they had their 6-man tribe go to the United Nations building in New York City to give them this prophetic knowledge. All of their prophecies have come true until this one. And these worlds, don't misinterpret if you try to Google them that they lived through 3 worlds. One was fire, one was ice, one was what? No. It's fire, ice, flood. They even mention wind. They call it the shaking of the earth. They had the 3rd great shaking of the earth, and we're going to the 4th. It all fits to a T. All right, let's talk about if anybody can actually survive this thing underground. The earth is spinning 1,000 miles per hour. When it reverses, creates enough wind and speed above ground and below ground from that impact. We say that World War III, 7 months in, everyone's gone, and not even our bunkers can save us. Is it possible that the pole shift happens 7 months into World War III? Because these government bunkers are like designed for this stuff. Why can't bunkers save us? Speaking of Hopi, they say that there's 7 really hard years. Apophis 2029 to Apophis 36 is exactly 7 years. And the Yorkshire prophecy written in the 1500s says those who have made it to the 21st century will experience this red dragon in the sky, this astral body, which a lot of people talk about the red dragon, including Revelations, and I just found one in Welsh, which was actually before an ancient Celtic sign. It's been like on the Welsh flag and stuff. But back to Yorkshire. So she said that when this happens, the tides will rise and bite away the shore. Earthquakes will happen, mountains will fall, sea will fall into the land. This will cause severe famine to the point people are murdering each other, killing each other, just turning into savages. Then things will eventually go back to normal, somewhat as normal as they can go. But we will be afraid of the return of this red dragon, which would make sense because it's coming close enough to us in 26 that it's going to alter our magnetosphere, and the magnetic energy could definitely shift the poles. And then in 2036, when it's actually estimated to hit us, or was before damage control, but Russia speaks truth, then that would be the actual pole shift that nobody can survive. And this is why the extraterrestrials, I'm sure the extraterrestrials and the elites go up into the sky, as the Hopi said right before the event. But even if we can't survive the pole shift underground, that doesn't mean we don't need bunkers. Like 7 really hard years, like we're going to need to be underground when Apophis 29, if it's when it starts the famine. We need to go. I mean, I'm going to do it regardless just to be safe, and we need to stock up on a ton of food and water and put it down there, like years worth. And then there's one more thought. I don't know if this partakes. I don't know if it's true, but I have heard it in a couple places, including Doug Vogt from Die Hole Foundation, which is he's very scientific about everything, but we're supposed to lose our, that kinetic energy barrier in the quantum field that keeps you from sticking your hand through a wall. And this has happened in the Philadelphia experiment, so this is real technology they have. So something would restructure our atoms so that the electrons swarming them would alter, interact with the other electrons, cease, something like that. I mean, it's electrons, it's electricity almost, you know? The 14 tablets of Enki waste no time. Starts out talking about Nibiru, the radioactive cloud that kills everybody in its path. Now it says that Nibiru, as it crosses close to our solar system, dipping towards the center, that it's Uranus that sprouts its four winds, comes too close, and actually causes devastation also to Nibiru. Now remember, it was Uranus and Neptune that were both wobbling, which caused them to look into what's going on with this planet, suspect a ninth planet. And Neptune just had its reversal, and Uranus has a record-breaking storm and auroral activity. So this planet is crossing into our solar system exactly where the Sumerian tablets said it was going to cross into our solar system. And this storm activity, record-breaking storm activity, is going to hit Earth as well. These tablets say that it's not just the tidal wave that's going to flood the Earth, that it's the rain too. So that means the 40 days and 40 nights could actually be true. These tablets say that the tidal wave is going to go on for 7 days. So Shan Thomas was only a day off. He said 6 days. Not only do the Sumerian tablets talk about the Black Sun, the Dead Sea, talks about the reversal, talks about the shaking of the earth coming from the center of the earth, the tidal wave, the storms. There's really not a part of this event that it does not talk about. Now, they also mention that last time all their spacecraft went into the air to save themselves. Now, the Hopi prophecy, I think the extraterrestrials are going into the sky, and this could be why the government has admitted aliens are real, so that, you know, on top of all the other chaos, we're not completely freaked out and thinking we're having an alien holocaust, which I'm sure people will anyways. And interestingly, the Sumerian tablets sometimes reference their extraterrestrial vehicles as chariots. And not only Ezekiel's chariot in the Bible, but also Elijah was taken up on one of these flaming chariots as well. There's a little bit of good news. The tablets say that the earth will be shaking and growling in pain for a few days before the event. Also that we're going to see Nibiru as a glowing blue star for these few days. So we have a warning, and this totally aligns with Hopi prophecy. I was kind of thinking just like, we're just going to see the star for a long time, not knowing it's coming, but somehow it's going to be very bright in our sky for a few days before the event. Now, where in the Sumerian tablets does it ever say that Nibiru's cycle is 3,600 years? They only ever mention shars, not years at all. Stitchen's estimate was 3,600 years. You can find this anywhere. It's thought to be 3,600 years. Now, tons of ancient cultures tell us about the inside of our earth, from the Tibetan Buddhist monks that protect Shambhala. And not only has the American government went looking for it, I told you about Nicholas and Helena Roerich that they funded to go look for it. Also, I found out the German government. Now, about every Native American tribe has told us about being taken inside the earth this last pole shift. The Hopi is a really good one to reference because they specifically let us know about the reptilians and the ant people that they inhabited the inside of the earth. It was the ant people that came and got them and brought them in. There are these giant plumes the size of Australia. One is under Africa, the other under the Pacific Ocean. And these plumes are responsible for our devastating volcanic eruption. And they are also responsible for bending our magnetic field. Well, I would say partially responsible. I think it's just one disastrous recipe that all coincides. The largest underwater volcano on Earth has erupted, and they just realized that it cracked the bottom of the ocean floor. The bottom of the Pacific Ocean is just split in two. Those two giant plumes they found inside the Earth, 600 miles deep into the Earth, one under Africa, one under the Pacific Ocean. What's going on in Africa? Split in two. What's going on in the floor of the Pacific Ocean? Split in two. So these are obviously very tied together, and it's kind of interesting how they're almost strategically placed on exact opposite sides of the Earth. The Yellowstone Park has its own Grand Canyon. It's called the Yellowstone Grand Canyon, and it has two waterfalls, one of them bigger than Niagara Falls, like twice as big, 300 feet. And this goes down like with the river 25 miles, and at the widest point it's 4,000 feet wide. It's like 1,200 feet deep. Very significant, which they estimate this to be 10,000 to 14,000 years old. 12,000 years ago. Definitely happened the last pole shift. I mean, look at the erosion on the sides of these canyons. That was a huge body of water rushing through there at a very fast speed for a very long time.
And this restless Yellowstone caldera is truly living, breathing. Every once in a while it bursts.
He's talking about that 30-mile wide, 10-mile deep liquid magma reservoir, which is actually nothing compared to the 400-mile volcanic snake that's going into the earth, which 400 miles is right to that layer, right above the 600-mile layer that has these plumes. And, you know, the Grand Canyon River, it's going into the Snake River that goes right into the Pacific Ocean. So location-wise, this is a ticking time bomb.
Yellowstone in northwest Wyoming is also sitting atop a supervolcano, and it just took what scientists describe as a deep breath, causing miles of ground to rise dramatically. And the ground has started to swell in levels that they have not seen before, 10 inches in some places in the past year. What does that tell us?
It tells us that there is activity in this supervolcano. That's a ring about 1,000 miles across. That's the heartline of America.
It would pretty much wipe out Earth as we know it.
It would wipe out the United States as we know it. And again, we don't want to panic anybody.
They've been able to date Niagara Falls. Do you know how old it is? 12,000 years exactly. Same exact Nibiru timeline. So government is admitting to the 12,000 year cycle. Shockingly, hallelujah. I'm going to let you hear what he has to say. Then anyone new, I'll fill you in on what this 12,000 year cycle is.
I developed a professional career within the national security, legislative affairs. My current professional activities take place on Capitol Hill, Washington, D.C., where I serve as a federal lobbyist at the U.S. Congress and White House. Nonetheless, my current activities are centered on climate change and national security-related matters. Our planet is on the verge of self-destruction, and humanity only has a few years remaining to avert this impending catastrophe. Right now, our planet is entering a cycle of climatic disasters that affects all the planets of our solar system. This entire solar system undergoes this cycle every 12,000 years, and every 24,000 years the cycle has its highest intensity. These events have culminated in an extreme activation of magnetic foci and an accompanying increase in deep mantle earthquakes, a decrease in the thermal conductivity of the ocean. As a consequential result, our oceans have lost their ability to function as a compensatory and cooling mechanism. All these alarming factors indicate only one thing, to wit, it is evident that the Earth is experiencing rapid escalation of extreme climatic and geodynamic events. There is a significant rise in the occurrence and magnitude of seismic, volcanic, hydrological, atmospheric, gravitational, and thermal anomalies. Furthermore, we have recently detected a number of alarming anomalies in all the layers of the Earth's system. There is an extraordinary displacement and destabilization of the Earth's core, a sporadic and chaotic acceleration of the planet's rotation, and a shift in its rotational axis. This scenario is compounded by a critical weakening and emergence of atypical anomalies of the magnetic field and a change in the composition of the upper layers of the atmosphere. Similar to Earth, evidence processes of change in the cores of other planets and geodynamic restructurings, as well as the increase of atmospheric anomalies, are occurring elsewhere within our solar system. This, in turn, would suggest that these cycles are caused by the influence of an external cosmic impact on all the planets of the solar system. This is the pattern of recurring climatic disasters that we reside in today, that could lead to the demise of humanity of our planet Earth. If we look at Mars, we realize that the same pattern of consequential behavior is merely an echoed reminder of the planet's doomed fate.
And by the way, the glaciers are melting from the bottom up, from hot water, from the subglacial volcanoes. Pressure from the center of the Earth, heating and rising that magma. It's passing right over the Madrid fault line. You can take the Madrid fault line by the Edgar Cayce maps. It's right where the country splits into. The Iroquois prophecy says that the Great Lakes will turn into the Mississippi River and divide the country into right there. This earthquake in New York. 3 days, exactly 3 days before this. Now, why New York? That's where the United Nations building is. That is where the Hopi went in 1959 to warn the United Nations that the cycle had begun. Edgar Cayce says 1958 is when this cycle has begun. And if you don't know who Edgar Cayce is, he's a psychic who made 14,000 predictions and never one wrong, who said the pole shift is this century, and the second coming of Christ is bringing it in. Just like Revelations calls it the apocalypse that the second Christ is bringing in. So these threes are important. We have 3 days between death and resurrection. We have died at age 33. When's our next solar eclipse? year 33. Third month, day 30, 33. Put it together, it's 33, 33. Genesis 1:14 says that God will use the sun and the moon to mark significant times, to give us these signs. Now, Dr. Egan Chalakian, he is a NASA and CERN scientist. He's the one that was like, hallelujah, government has admitted to the 12,000-year cycle. He says that we have about 10 years left on this planet, and the cycle begins 2024. Of course, year of the dragon. Stuff to know that's going on. The magnetic field is decreasing at an alarming rate. Like right now, they've, well, not estimated, they scientifically got the number of 5% per decade. That is 10 times faster than they previously told us. That means it is speeding up very quickly. Tree scores in New Zealand from the Champs event, which is what they call the last pole shift, shows that it was at 28% of what it is now, and it's already low state. Studies in mice with a low magnetic field, violence, cannibalism, rape, tissue deterioration, mental deterioration, cancer, all kinds of stuff. All this behavior we're seeing, like mass shootings and just violence increasing, this is all predestined, and all the prophecies say, and then we'll, act like this in these times. So is it possible that these solar eclipses that mark significant times are the black sun told to us in all of these prophecies? The only sense I could make of it was our supernova, or technically a micronova, which they admit can happen over and over and over. It does happen over and over again. But even with the supernovas, like just article in 2024 saying we just observed our first supernova turn into a black hole. And then you read the article and it says they just watched it turn into a black hole or a neutron star. Two different things, which means they haven't observed either, which means we know nothing. What you can do right now is when you're using your cell phones, your devices, put them on airplane mode when you can. Like sleep with it on airplane mode. If you're just reading an article, you can just put it on airplane mode and still read the article even through Google. If you're in your notes, stuff like that. Try to limit your screen time. The radiation from our phones and devices and just all around us, it's already deteriorating our brain. You can see that in studies of mice too, but it's going to be getting much more rampant. We need to be bonding together, get all your rich friends, bring your poor friends, build communities. We need underground spaces stocked with food and water, and seeds that can grow in dry weather, like grain and stuff like that. We need nuclear facility radiation filters, a Tesla tower on each one, a strong dipole for an artificial magnetic field and whatnot. Apophis is coming around Friday the 13th, 2029, in April, the 4th month. Now, I mentioned before, four significant, this four-sided star forts, the swastikas, the little crop circle, those four sides. But I'm realizing it actually has a lot of apocalyptic connotation, or going into the New World connotation. The four cycles of the Yuga cycle, the four elements, earth, water, fire, air, all that are going to tear this world apart. Land just falling into the water, the wind, 1,000 miles per hour wind is the air, also carrying that water all over the earth, and then the earth being that element that buries everything. And then the fire is not only the magma, but the lightning, which a lot of these prophecies say is rain of fire. The Hopi say that we're in the fourth world, and that this fourth world is ending. The four corners is where they enter into inner earth to be saved from these pole shifts. The four winds, Native American tribes mention, as well as the Sumerian tablets mention, that's going to take us out. The evil winds, the four winds from the four directions. Taking the four directions, the Hopi also say these 8 tablets at the end are coming from 4 different directions of 4 different colors of people that are going to unite and close this thing, bring us into the new world. So I don't think it's coincidence, these numbers that come up. The entity that Dolores Cannon was channeling said that this shift is going to happen 2029, but she got other stuff wrong, and I don't believe any entity that gives the actual date. And also, there can be a pre-shift, especially since the Yorkshire prophecy that was spot on said that it's going to happen, and then it's going to happen again for real. So Apophis could be a first little pre-shake. NASA's original observation of Apophis said that it's going to pass through a keyhole in space. It's like a half-mile wide space, and then it actually might hit us in 2036. And of course they were like, oh, no, yeah, I'm just kidding. Oh, we're safe, but you can never trust that. And it's Friday the 13th, same Friday the 13th in 2036, and 36, 3, significant, 6 significant, you sum them, it's 9 very significant in this process. They say that our magnetic field is going to cause asteroid quakes on Apophis and even change its orbit. They say nothing about how it's going to affect our magnetic field and our rotational orbit. And you have to take into consideration Proxima b and Proxima Centauri, the effect it's already having on our entire solar system, on our sun, on the center of our Earth. That in combination with Apophis, it's going to be a disaster. I think I found the other red star Kachina. If you're new, Hopi prophecy, blue star, red star Kachina prophecy is an end times prophecy. The red star Kachinas are astral bodies.
Back in the 1950s, most people aren't aware of it, but there was a scientific storm in America all through the late 50s about this thing out there in space, because the astronomers were all watching it, and that was back when they weren't afraid to talk about it. It was in the science magazines. I mean, I had a subscription to, like, Popular Science, and hell, it was on the front cover of the magazine one day in, like, 1961. And this baby's out there in the sky. They've been watching it. I watched it, and I can tell you, this thing has got so much trash coming around it. This thing's going to look like a big red dragon, exactly like all the ancient Sumerians and the Chinese and all the rest of them that had documented this thing's passing before. And we could see that it was a blazing hot ball of fire giving out sparkles of red iron oxide dust for thousands of miles in every direction. This is its own solar system. We're about to have a solar system come through the middle of our solar system. This can't be good. We were looking at asteroids right close to this thing. There's asteroids that are floating around right near that are orbiting the main sun itself. These things appear to be about 500 miles across. And as you go back into the tail, you get into meteorites that go back for millions of miles in the tail. This thing looks like a giant red teardrop-shaped dust cloud. And you can see, once if you're able to see it up close like we did, you can see every speck out there. I guarantee you there's trillions of meteorites following this thing. Now, these CIA people that I know say that we're not going to be that close to it when it goes past us. They're saying that in order to attain breakaway speed, when it comes up around the backside of the sun, its speed will at least double, possibly more, and that this thing will probably be about 20 million miles from us when it crosses in front of us. And then as soon as it flips us upside down, we're going to go into its debris field tail and be pelted with meteorites. And of course, in the Bible it says they will count 70 pounds. So if you've got 70-pound meteorites falling like hail, and I can guarantee you they will be falling like hail because there are that many in the tail of this thing. This thing has got a tail loaded with trash. I mean, it's incredible the amount of stuff that's in this thing's tail. And we're going to go right through that tail.
Analysis showed a thin layer of coarse debris and then a large layer of fine dust. For Corti, it indicates the surface was hit with coarse debris, the impact through the local soil into the air to then settle as a layer of dust. Something pushed this coarse debris down onto Tauleland with an incredible force.
I tell everybody, you better be at least 20, 30, 40, 50 feet on the ground and have either concrete or stone above you, because it'll break through the roof or whatever you've got if you don't. These CIA guys told me that this pole shift will probably happen from start to finish in around 28 minutes. That doesn't give you a lot of warning. When you see that thing out there in the sky, you're going to have to run as fast as you can to your underground facility, because this is going to happen so fast.
So is it a planet or a failed star?
It's not a failed star. You know, I saw this thing up close. It did not look like a failed star. It looked just like our sun. To me, like a miniature sun, just like the one we have. The only difference is our sun is giving off flames and stuff, and this one's doing the same thing as it, but it's giving off this red iron oxide cloud of dust around it. It's sending all of this red iron oxide dust out into space around it,
right.
And it's got this enormous, and I mean enormous, at least 50 or 100,000 miles on each side of it, this red dust cloud that goes all the way around it. I was told that this thing's magnetic field is going to be so strong, anybody that does not have a padded lead helmet to wear will have their brain gutted for everything they ever knew. I was told by somebody the reason that is because the electromagnetic field from this thing will be so strong, because, see, as it comes up underneath of us, it's going to start and pull us toward it. And then, just like a pair of big magnets, all of a sudden it's going to lock onto us. And when it does, it's going to be like the Jolly Green Giant kicked the earth in the ass. It's going to send a jolt 500 to 1,000 foot high. This is what I'm told. 500 to 1,000 foot high shock waves all the way around planet Earth. They'll be so bad that in a lot of areas that don't have good solid soil, it'll fluff it so badly that you'll practically be like you're standing in quicksand. And that this thing's magnetic field will literally gut your brain of everything. And so you may want to give some thoughts to getting you some sheet lead, build you a little lead helmet to wear, you know, like a little motorcycle helmet to protect your entire brain and the back of your neck. There's a possibility. There's more than one thing out there. You know, I watched it through the Hubble Space Telescope, and when this thing looked like it was across the street, the Hubble got cut off and they encrypted it, and that was the end of any transmissions we had to watch. I'm really worried about what Jesus says. You know, when the fig tree is putting on its leaves, know that summer is near, and I'm at your door. And that worries me more than probably anything I've read in the Bible about this whole thing, the parable of the fig tree, because everything seems to be in place for this thing's arrival. And the bad thing is, he says, I'm going to come like a thief in the night. Well, it does also say in the Bible that I'm going to make the sun go down at noontime in Jerusalem. Okay, if that's the case, there's only one thing that'll make the sun go down. Not hit the horizon, down. Go down at noontime, and that's if the planet experiences a pole shift. We estimated that this thing is traveling around 3,500 miles an hour, okay?
Okay.
That was our estimate of its speed. Now, it has been picking up speed, and that's the reason why we think it's going to arrive early, because when it comes around the backside of the sun, it's got to double that speed in order to attain breakaway speed to leave the sun and not wind up orbiting it. It's never orbited the sun in the past that we know of, so that means that it's going to have to attain breakaway speed to head back out into space. Now, you look at the NASA videos, photos, and all this other crap those morons put on the internet. This thing is coming in. It's going to, as soon as it goes around the top of the sun, it's going to go back out into space.
Right.
And it's going to do this really fast. When it goes past us, it's going to go past us so fast that we'll almost have no time to get ready. According to what I was told, is that this thing is approximately 47,000 miles in diameter, you know, 4 or 5 times the size of the Earth, and it'll come past us. And we won't have a lot of warning, and we won't get to see it in the sky until it's on us. This planet is rolling over to face this thing. Now, when it goes by, it's not going to push our North Pole away. It's going to grab our southern pole with its northern pole, and it's going to be like somebody kicked this planet in the ass. That earthquake that it talks about in Revelations, when the opening of the 6th seal comes, from what I've been told, that's very accurate, because that's exactly what's going to happen. There's going to be a massive earthquake when it locks onto us. As it goes past us, we're going to follow it right upside down. The oceans are just going to be roaring from pole to pole, as you could well guess they would, because if you take a planet that's 7,000 miles across and roll it upside down in 30 minutes, you're going to have some real serious problems with wind and water. And this thing in the magazine, it said this tidal wave coming in was going to be at least 3 miles high.